Hi, everyone. I'm Leslie Keith with Lymphatic Lifestyle Solutions Online, and I wanted to give you a brief overview of a ketogenic diet. This is the way of eating that we promote in our program. So this is a brief overview of a ketogenic diet plan. First, I wanted to give you this disclaimer because this information is for informational use only. You should not be changing your way of eating radically without consulting with your physician first to make sure that this is appropriate for your individual circumstances. So keep that in mind as you look at this information. This is an overview so you understand this way of eating, but this is not for you to implement without proper guidance. So this way of eating is just eating real food. You can see here, these are all foods on a ketogenic eating plan. And so this is all foods that you recognize. It's nothing unusual, nothing radical. You can be looking very, very normal while you're eating this way. So what is part of a well-formulated ketogenic diet? Well, it means carbohydrate restriction, keeping your carbohydrates low, and I'll be describing that further for you. And then having your proteins moderate. So really focusing on proteins and making sure you're getting plenty of good protein. And then having high fat, meaning that you're going to enjoy some high-fat foods, but you don't need to force yourself to eat fat. And when we eat this way, we change our primary fuel source from fat or ketones. We change it to fat and ketones instead of carbohydrates. When we eat a standard American diet, which is very high in carbohydrate, our body automatically wants to use those carbohydrates for fuel. But when we restrict our carbohydrates, now we're going to use fat and ketones for fuel. And we know this works for humans very well because we are so adept at storing our primary preferred fuel source, which is fat. We're very, very good at storing fat. We cannot store sugar. You can only store about 24 hours worth of glucose and then you're out. Whereas fat, you know that you can store that for decades on your body. And so this way of eating is a way to get meaningful weight loss without muscle loss. Because really, when we lose weight, we want to lose fat. We don't want to lose muscle. And I just quote that one article there for you that was done in 2013, a study that showed that we did not get muscle loss with this way of eating. So let's compare a standard American diet with a ketogenic way of eating. So a standard American diet, the way that most Westerners eat is 60% of their calories are from carbohydrate. So you can see that in red. That's the majority of the foods are carbohydrates. 25%, and this part stays pretty stable with pretty much every diet, about 25% is proteins and 15% is fat. So that's a standard Western diet. But a ketogenic diet is going to focus more on fat consumption. And so 70% of calories, up to 70 or more, could come from fat. And then only 10% of calories are from carbohydrates. And again, 20 to 25% will be from proteins. So some people are a little scared about restricting their carbohydrate intake. Isn't this dangerous? Aren't carbohydrates essential? And so the daily carbohydrate requirement, according to the Institute of Medicine Dietary Reference Intakes, and this was published in 2008 and also in 2012, and they said, quote, the lower limit of dietary carbohydrate compatible with life apparently is 0, provided that you get adequate amounts of protein and fat. And so when we suggest to limit our carbohydrate intake to about 20 grams or less per day, we're not talking about having 0 carbohydrates, but even if you had 0 carbohydrates, you can see that even the Institute of Medicine says that's perfectly fine. So let's talk about those carbs. And so with the ketogenic way of eating, you're going to reduce your carbohydrate intake to 20 grams a day total or less. The typical Western diet is about 250 to 300 grams per day. So you can see that is quite a difference. And it may be that you need to do this stepwise. Another reason why taking our course will help you to be able to gradually get down to that 20 grams per day, which is going to be the best for your lymphedema, best for weight loss. And so some strategies that you can employ to get there. You can start with just eliminating the big 4 high carb foods, and that's bread, rice, pasta, and potatoes. Just don't have those anymore. But for some people, that may even be too much to start with. And so I say, how about just all foods that are made with wheat flour? How about just starting with bread, just eliminating bread? And that may make a big difference. As soon as you start realizing those benefits, it gets easier to eliminate more carbohydrates. And snacks tend to be high carb when we snack. And so just taking that one strategy of not snacking, you would essentially be reducing your carbohydrate intake. So something to consider. And then let's look at proteins, because I really want you to prioritize proteins. Protein intake is so important. We need it for healthy bones, strong muscles, for building enzymes and other vital cell nutrients and stuff like that, things that we need in our body. And so we really need to make sure that we get plenty of proteins. And so what I recommend to you is when you look at how much protein you want to eat per day, eat at least something that equals the size of your fist. Okay. And so that amount of protein is going to be a good start, and you certainly can eat more than that. And the animal source foods are going to be the highest quality proteins. So plant proteins are not as high of a quality of protein, although there are some proteins in plants. So consider, what are those animal source foods that you like? Meat, eggs, fish, chicken, dairy. So here's some strategies. When planning a meal, choose the protein food first. Start with, I'm going to have chicken today, and then put your other side dishes around that, but choose that protein food first. And then choose only the protein foods you like. If you don't like fish, you don't have to eat fish. Take those protein foods that you like. We want you to enjoy what you're eating with this way of eating. And then we're going to fill in with healthy fats. And so you really just want to eat fats to satiation. There is no daily target. Traditionally in ketogenic diets, especially those for particular conditions like epilepsy, we had to have a particular target. We had to have a certain amount of fat each day in order to prevent seizures from happening or to prevent cancer growth, for instance. But for this way of eating, to manage your weight and to help manage your lymphedema, it's merely that you're just going to eat those fats to satiation. You don't have to try to overeat fats. And so those kind of healthy fats that you're going to be looking for are butter, lard, tallow, plant-based fats like coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil, having full fat dairy. All those are going to be healthy fats. Again, looking for those fats that you enjoy. Don't make yourself eat fats that you don't enjoy. And then fats to include, I really want you to eliminate from your diet industrialized seed oils like canola, soy, and corn oils. All those vegetable oils that they make out of vegetable seeds are highly inflammatory. Margarines, very inflammatory to our lymphatic system. And then vegetable shortenings like Crisco, not good for your lymphatics and not going to help you reduce your lymphedema. So what are some strategies to get these nice healthy fats? Add butter to every time you make some wonderful grilled low-carb vegetables. Put lots of butter on it. Use full-fat dairy, as in whipping cream, heavy whipping cream, if you can add that to your coffee or your tea. And then keep in mind, too, that if you have difficulty with dairy, if you have an allergy to lactose, for instance, that you can still do keto and still fill in with some nice healthy fats without doing dairy. And a lot of people who are have a lactose intolerance or allergic to dairy, they still do okay with butter because butter has very little of the lactose or the milk sugar in it. It is mostly fat. And so consider that you might be okay with butter. It's one of those things that you're going to have to experiment with yourself and see what you can tolerate. But again, have those foods that you enjoy. And lastly, avoid anything that says on the packaging low fat, non-fat, or fat-free, because those are going to be high in sugar. And so we want to get those nice healthy fats, and we don't want to have sugar and carbs. So lastly, I would just, the takeaway for you is to take pleasure in the food while you're losing weight and you're attaining health while you're managing your lymphedema. We look forward to seeing you in the course, Lymphatic Lifestyle Solutions online. Thank you so much for joining me today.